So imagine an 8 or 9-year-old boy in a different culture in Abadan, south of Iran, near Sinbad the Sailor country, you know. On the way to school, there'd be a guy sitting there in a dusty floor next to a ditch, about 100 yards away from the school door. And then he would have a little box or two boxes and tiny little packets and these folded envelopes, rather like the way in the 70s they used to sell Coke, or diamonds, the same thing. Even today, diamonds are sold that way, tiny little stones. There'd be a 35 millimeter single image of a 35 millimeter film in there. We'd take a shoe box, cut a little rectangular hole at one end of it, and then get a light bulb and screw a light bulb and tap the black part and slowly take out the filament without breaking glass, fill it with water, put it in some clay, stabilize it, and you have a perfect lens. And the other end of the shoebox, you make another hole and put a lamp bulb without a shade, of course. And he ended up with something like 8 by 10 foot gigantic shot of Marilyn Monroe from Niagara Falls in my room. It was like magic. I don't know, I went to see this movie one day, what was it, 14 odd years ago, 15 years ago, I can't remember now. Empty theater, maybe 3 or 4 people there, and I really took to it. The humor, the style was so unique, it reminded me of the early days, let's say, of the innocent period in America in the 50s, with James Dean, with Dennis Hopper. It was just a shocking sort of innocence all the way through. And it was goofy, it was crazy, it didn't make sense, but also it kept you going along. Also, I like the style of it, I like the sensibility of it. It's like a mid-50s sensibility to it. Like the innocence of it is really what touched me. The humanity, the friendships, and the humor, the delicacy of it. It was just film, pure film. I love that part. A little bit like Breathless was, but this was in color. The images are so juicy and interesting and exciting. I feel like picking the scenes up and actually moving it, stretching it, turning it, and playing with it. In fact, peeling the scene out of peeling the image out of the film, so to speak, and then stretching it, making it like a living experience, like an object, basically. Aren't you haunted by something in a film that you're obsessed by, and then it sort of comes to you in a dream or in fragments, and certain part when you're a kid, especially, on certain things sort of taken out of the movie context suddenly become a part of your life? Of course they do. This is where Dignan and Anthony have it out, because Dignan didn't really tell Anthony he stole the earrings. So now Dignan is being taught a lesson by Anthony, who's telling him, why don't we do a robbery in your mother's house, right? Perfect relationship, look at this. That was great. Friendships develop from childhood or memories of childhood at different locations, depending where you were born, transcend geographical limitations and racial context. So they become something other. But of course, the mythic is what's more important. The mythic aspect of the friendship is what's got to continue to become alive. Otherwise, a friendship is just a normal, boring relationship. That's a great scene coming up. This is looking for Grace, his little sister. I love the fact that he's going towards Grace. He's a mature guy, and he's talking to Grace, and the fact that Grace is covering for him. The fact that he's telling him he's exhausted. How the hell could he be exhausted when you're not working? So the little girl is already more mature than he is. And I love this intimacy. I love this delicacy. At age 11, we changed to go to high school, I guess. And I remember one of the first few days, suddenly all the guys, all the taller, older boys, in a beautiful, under big blue sky, suddenly talking, and there was like an alarming lull everywhere, and I heard that James Dean had just died that day, and it was a very important day in my life. That same evening, went to with some friends, went to the Bazari Theater, and we saw East of Eden played in English, of course, and with makeshift chairs and a whole bunch of Iranians and Muslim guys, and mesmerized by this thing, So here we go. I love the fact Future Man is coming along here, and so for the first time seeing this Future Man, Andrew, meeting Anthony and Dignan for the first time. I think what's great about this is that there's the three brothers together, get together at this house with Wes, and picking a detail of one leaf in a pool with the three brothers identifying this together as a dilemma. I like the fact they're having this meeting now, but it leads to a point where suddenly they have an argument. This is real. As real as you can get, see? Yeah, I think the crazy arguments and differences of opinion that were between these characters should go to the next level. The discrepancy between one set of beliefs and another should elevate it to another level, even a more mature level. And disjointed opposition of opinion and understanding, the complete misreadings, in fact, but at the same time, in a good-natured way, because friendships sort of override all of that, becomes the structure of this thing. So the discombobulated effect of all these components together becomes something really unusual. I especially love Bob Yeoman's camera work and the fact that the scene is very intimate. They're talking, the camera is stationary, focusing on both of them, and then there's a split. Check this out. The camera goes in, separates them, so you see Dignan. And then the camera pulls back, and they're back together again. I think that's one of the best beautiful scenes ever. I love the fact the music changes, suddenly you're in a romance. Suddenly you're in this happy romantic state. So beautiful. I love this scene. This is a typical classic Wes Anderson detail. Wonderful detail. Look at that. The hand holding this tiny little image. That's my sister. A friend of mine who can't read or write, hardly ever saw a movie. We talked about one time if he had ever seen a Jack Nicholson movie. Here, suddenly, by pointing it out, he remembers the one scene where Nicholson is eating pizza. And he said that floored him because he never saw anyone eat pizza like that. That's basically what it is. And here, these characters are doing very simple things, but it immediately makes you want to become friends with them, because in a way that's what friendship is. Yeah, it's a beautiful picture. Look at that. So sullen, so sad. This is like Pasolini, you know? It's like Acetone. So magnificent. I like that. Young, majestic giants. Isn't that great? Beautiful. Look at the hairstyle. Look, never looks so good. Looks dynamite. Now here, this is a little bit another violent scene coming up. The breakup. Look at that. 2 in 1. Wow. Come over here. Give me a hug. Here's a Texan Dignan hug. See? Back in again. Dignan makes it all okay again. I love that. A little bit of nerve-wracking violence. Keep going. Actually, I don't like all this serious stuff. That's the scene. I'm fucking innocent. Yeah, I love that. What's important is when something is, there's sort of a daredevil, independent spirit which identifies something, appropriates, steals, little thievery, little stealings here and there, and utilizes with complete innocence for its own advantage of doing and saying something. And that combination of what's familiar and altering to something a little bit unfamiliar, you're aware of that little transformation of stealings going on. So Bottle Rocket, to me, is a quintessential, it's like stealing an idea of a movie, trying to make a movie in that way, and yet stealing an idea of what could you put in a movie? Well, you could have a little robbery, but in fact the robbery you have is a make-believe robbery. So why don't we rob something which is not really robbable, or there's nothing to steal there? So I like that that daredevil, naughty spirit of trying to make up something to pass the day. I don't know where they came up with this idea from. You know, it's not a normal narrative. There's no real crime drama going on. It's just these characters. The idea of a friend of yours in jail, you go and visit somebody in jail, is a very unique experience. And they go to visit him. So it's like you going in there. And yet you realize the vulnerability, the isolation, underneath the whole thing, there's a real sensitive, lonely humanity underneath it all, right? Our hero walking away in isolation. And here he's going to melancholy. Look at that. Reflection. Back to loneliness. Adios. Adios, my friend.